One of the things I think has been really important to me when I attend groups is that I'm not treated as a blank plate, as if I don't know anything. And so when I came to this group, I wanted to make sure that we respected the knowledge that everybody had. Well, I think if you have a look, I often find if we choose a topic, so the topic we've got this week is handbags, so we look at how people use handbags, what kind of people use what kind of bags, how a character might use a bag to express expression, or how you might create a mystery because somebody's handbag falls open, or you might be trying to give a particular type of character, so you might refer to them as carrying a backpack, which means they're a traveller, or carrying a designer bag, or just something like that. So I think it enables us then to share, to talk about other experiences, and sometimes it opens doors we've never even looked at or thought about before. I've sat in a lot of classes, I've sat through a huge range of lectures, virtually all around the world. I know what I absolutely hate. It's an environment I don't like. I'm probably one of the worst students you could imagine.
She is just doing the coffee taste.
Throughout history, whether it is through archaeology or whether it's in writing, the shoes tell us a lot about the people who wear them, the kind of characters we have. If you're writing murder mysteries, then the shoe becomes a really important part of finding out a lot about the murderer, especially the ones who take one of them and use them as a trophy. So many books, novels, sell their books by using the sexual implications of high-heeled shoes. These are the only books with men's shoes on the cover that I could buy.
They're sexy, aren't they?
Yeah, they're men's boots. But
they're concrete.
But I thought, don't you think isn't that one of the most interesting things if I was ever talking about stereotyping again?
Can I tell you a little story about a shoe? Well, these two ladies, and every time the Japanese saw her, they burst out laughing. They thought it was so funny.
These boots are made for walking. Who sang that?
Lee Hazelwood and
NS.
No, Sinatra.
Yes, but who? Which Sinatra?
His daughter.
Oh, his daughter.
Nancy.
Nancy.
Elvis.
You ready, Maud?
I'm ready.
You're ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I found it very easy to write my memoirs because, it's easy to talk about yourself. Very easy, in fact. So, I just wrote down exactly what happened, and I've become a lot more confident. And as you write, you become better. And it's easier to do as you write. You get much better at it. And so now I find it quite easy.
yes, first of all, I think that it's been extremely challenging having to remember and recall bits and pieces of my life. And of course it's quite emotionally challenging as well.
Although it's been difficult, has it been worthwhile?
Oh yes, yeah, extremely so. One imagines that historically it's past history now, and you can put it away, but one of the most challenging things is the decisions that I've made in my life have been pretty stupid sometimes. And it's rather a joyful task to do in that regard, because I'm very close to most of them and they all want to know about Braemar. And my children have also been helpful too in that regard. While I thought I was quite literate in my expression of myself and also my writing, I was always good at it at school, and it's been wonderful to be able to share with some of the other highly qualified people in the group to share different kinds of writing, and the tutor has also given me some guidance in writing snippets when I remember them, and that was helpful too. It was really helpful.
What's too painful to remember?
I have written a number of things about the time when I was working at Woomera. What is going to be different this time is that it will tell a story told from the perspective of people who were employed at the medical clinic inside that centre. So the idea that the theme that I really want to build in is to take the reader right inside that razor wire of the detention centre, to have the gate shut behind the reader, to have the second gate slammed shut, and then the reader is inside another world. Wow. And that is where the action will take place, right inside there. What is different this time is that these are actually going to have to be new characters, because I'm now seeking to extract a story rather than faithfully reproducing something in black and white that has happened about 20 years ago. Unfortunately, every now and then I have been I have effectively visited a space where I do not want to be, and sometimes, and that has had its own difficulties.
When you encounter a difficult space or a difficult remembrance or a difficult sort of writer's block, what do you then do to overcome that?
The short answer to it is I can't.
Yeah.
And I don't. And unfortunately for me, the way it often manifests itself is that there is this pattern of procrastination and you just can't get back. You know what you want to do, but it just doesn't happen. So I sooner just keep these ideas in here.
Why don't you tell people what I discovered about you? What time do you get up in the morning and how long do you write for most days?
I get up at around 6 o'clock in the morning, go for a nice walk around the block, and that gets the oxygen going into the brain, and then I'm ready to start writing. And before breakfast, I've actually got a couple of hours in. That's on a good day. So, well, if you want to write a novel, I mean, you've got to write every word.
You used a lot of resources around the community to get the information that you wanted. Was that difficult to, I was going to get the confidence to go out and ask all those questions?
No, that was easy, and they made it easy for me. They were very helpful. The other thing I did was to buy birth or death certificates, because you get more information from a death certificate. So I purchased ones that weren't on record with Ancestry, and it's amazing what information, other little bits of treasure that can be derived from reading those certificates. So I wrote the first draft. It had far too much research in it. It was boring. It was not, the voice was not coming from one person. But once I joined Lorraine's group, I learned to describe the scene and not just bore straight into it, make it more visual, and certainly to speak through one of my main characters, the main character, for instance, in each family line.
You're finding it more difficult now you're getting up to write about people you have personally known about?
Yes, because there are conflicts of ideas. I have other cousins who are researching and who are my generation, and I have to be careful not to offend people, to say things that are out of context. And certainly one of the main things in the whole plan is to keep everything in sequence. It must be kept in the correct sequence.
Well, I think joining a writers group is wonderful, especially I can say this is coming from a very lazy writer. I wrote a lot in the past, and I fully intended to now, but I got slowed down. But I so much enjoyed it because there was constant motivation and stimulation. I come to class never knowing quite sure what would be the new thing for the day, which I think is wonderful because it's a driving motivation every week to come to class. And Lorraine has researched everything very well, so she's very, very prepared for the class. And I guess it's inspired me to go home and think about it, look some things up myself on the computer.
It does change the way in which you read books, doesn't it?
Oh, it definitely does. I analyze them more as I read, and one thing I'm probably very guilty of at the moment is if I pick up a book or an article and it's got too much description, too many adjectives, I put it down. I think, this isn't right. It's made me think a lot more about what I read, but I still keep reading.
When did you first start writing stories?
I'd say, looking back, it must have been about 30 years ago. You know, writing little vignettes that come to mind and quickly burying them in some drawer somewhere. Yeah, it's more, it just, sometimes you get these ideas and you just, the little stories in my mind and write them down, and they end up in, you know, just, gosh, well, I've changed my taste over the years. I went to a stage where I liked biography. I went to a stage where I liked a lot of just straight out scientific. And more recently I've been listening to books. Whenever I go for a walk or driving, this 4 hours Melbourne to Gippsland, I go through, you know, it's a good time to,
I really want to complete my memoirs, definitely. I have a story to tell, everybody does, but I've always been a big person on tell your story before you go. I got my mother to do it, I missed out on getting my dad, and I just think for family history and prosperity of our generation, I think it's necessary. And over the years I've just developed my writing in different ways and different styles, because I now have more time on my hands more than anything else. I write the travel blog purely and simply because of interest, I suppose, to fellow people back home and things like that. I don't necessarily write it for any other reason, just to keep memory, and when I come home I then put it into the photo books, and I've got a memory of that trip for forever and a day. And the statistics that come through, I've got about 1,000 people who have looked at the blog, and they can be from all over Australia, the world actually, USA, Russia, Ukraine even, all these weird wonderful things. It's on the net, so it's just open to everybody.
No, I have not actually written anything since attending the group, but I've now started to formalise what I want to do. So it's been very interesting, and what I'm actually going to do is very much in relation to what I saw. Dawn was creating her biographical stuff, so that really opened up my mind, because originally when I was much younger I had this idea of doing an autobiographical piece, and I think I will actually do it now. I've got even the title in my head. Title? A title! What do you have as a title of an autobiography? But I have a title. Have you ever read Joseph Conrad? No. My favourite authors, as far as that goes, they're quite philosophical, almost all of them. Joseph Conrad, you know, talking about life in the sea. Jane Austen, talking about simply relationships and things of that nature, but a very deep understanding. George Eliot, George Orwell, Aldous Huxley. So, you know, they're essentially the classics.
Well, nowhere else in the world could there be an Aussie twaddle, because, as we all know, rubbish is a load of twaddle, and in all my travels I've always been referred to by friends, compatriots and business friends, etc. as Aussie. So when I started writing, one thing led to another and Aussie Twaddle came into focus. I think to me probably humour is the most important aspect of life because, let's face it, life's got its serious points and most of it is serious. And if you can leave people laughing, well, you've done your little bit, haven't you? Now I travelled a lot in my work and I used to sit down of a night time in a motel bored out of my brain, and I reckon I wrote the first short story, it'd have to be 35 years ago. Well, in 2012 I went to California and like an idiot I bought a boat, and it was a 38-foot boat, and decided to sail it home across the Pacific, which I did. And I've written a book about that called Chasing the Sun. Now, Chasing the Sun is about 3 blokes on board, one of them who turns out to be a drug addict, and he nearly died on board, and my mate who I'd done an ocean crossing with before, previous to that, he ran away and left me in there on my own. So I then had to sail it home to Australia without ever having done any navigation. On my own. So I've written 26 short stories, and they're coming out in 2 volumes. Volume 1 is The Adventures of Aussie Twaddle, and the second one, volume 2, is it's fictitious. It's just fiction. I love getting lost in the virtual reality.
I find it interesting with this writer's group purely and simply because you might have the topic but you'll have different variations on that one theme that comes out of nowhere, and you just, I love it.
I don't know of anywhere else where I could sit around with a bunch of old women. It's not an education in how to write, but it's an education in how to source the nitty-gritties of life to write about or not to write about.
It's interesting to be working with writers because it's really made me think about the fact that I'm probably not a writer. I've spent most of my life editing. I think we learn through others and we learn through others' experiences, but not necessarily our own experiences.